What about Wade? I think he has him too. What if he turns him to wax?
What do you mean wax?
You don't get it. They're all wax. Everyone.
Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all of our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Sydney Thompson.
I'm Monica Height.
And I'm Chelsea Duff.
This week, we are talking about 2005's amazing, maybe the most amazing movie ever put out, definitely the best movie of 2005, and I don't even know what other movies came out in 2005 off the top of my head. House of Wax.
It's a flawless
It
already gets a standing ovation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's perfect. We'll get into it. We have so much to say, but I think there's nothing wrong with it. This movie did not get a fair shake in its heyday. This movie is cinema. There are so many moments in my notes where I was like, this is cinema. Like, this is incredible. This is high art. Should have gotten 14 Oscars, maybe.
It should have won all the Oscars.
Swept the Oscars.
100%. The fact that it was nommed for Razzies makes me want to kill.
It's just not right, and it's just not fair. Although I will say this movie didn't win a lot of awards. It got nominated for one MTV Movie Award, and it got nominated and won some Teen Choice Awards. I think it's very rude that it was nominated for Razzies, and also an award that it did not win called the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, which I'd never heard of before, but amazing. But I am glad that at least it got some recognition. You know what I mean? Because if this movie had just disappeared into the ether, that would have been worse. At least people were talking, you know?
Yeah. And it didn't even make back its budget, which was shocking to me.
I will pay them every dollar they need.
Right? Do not commit to that. There was a big gap. There was a huge gap.
They made up for the sales eventually on rentals and VHS, which is hilarious, by the way.
True. I love that. Everybody was like, okay, I'm not going to the theaters, but Blockbuster. We are headed to Blockbuster and we're going to get this. But honestly, I watched this movie with you guys before with the original Spooky crew months and months and months ago, and I must have been blitzed high for it. I must have been smoking the devil's lettuce because it was a brand new film for me this time. I watched it during the day. I should have watched it at night, so I would have been totally scared. But I watched it during the day. It was the most wonderful start to a day that anyone could ask for. I felt joy. I was screaming. The music in this movie, the soundtrack deserves best score. I don't know.
It did
What's an
win,
award the
actually.
soundtrack get?
It did win an award for the score. Yeah.
Okay.
Listen,
amazing.
2005, again, prime music year as well. 2004, 2005 cannot be beat for the music that came out those years. Hands down, chef's kiss, amazing.
I mean, this had freaking Deftones, Interpol, it had Marilyn Manson, and of course, it ends with the most incredibly cathartic song to ever sing along to and headbang to, which I just was doing in the bathroom, which is Helena by My Chemical Romance. Oh my God.
And I don't even know what the song is, where the cousin Skeeter guy and Paris Hilton are about to get it on, but whatever their sexy song is, I love that song. I love it.
I Shazammed it. I'll tell you after. It's so good.
So good.
Yeah, I would go into that for sure. 100%.
Okay. So if you haven't seen this movie, what are you doing? Go immediately see it right now. But this movie is about a group of teens who unwittingly are stranded near a strange wax museum and soon must fight to survive and keep from becoming the next exhibit. Dun dun dun.
Just beautifully worded synopsis.
It's also considered a remake. There was a 1950s Vincent Price movie called House of Wax. But honestly, this movie has really nothing to do with that except there is wax involved. And It's more of a movie of a 1979 movie called Tourist Trap, which if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend go seeing it because it is really good. But this movie is Tourist Trap, but instead of mannequins, wax figures. Figures.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
I saw.
haven't seen Tourist Trap, and I was reading about this on IMDb. Because even the director was like, essentially, this is a Tourist Trap remake, but we had to call it a House of Wax remake because the studio thought it had more name recognition or whatever. Which
Yeah.
legally, rights wise, don't know how that works.
No.
But just glad to get this movie either way, you know.
This movie is a gift.
And the wax elements, beautiful. Would not be the same if they did a strictly Tourist Trap remake with mannequins. The I don't want to say too much just yet, but the wax and the way it plays out at the end of the movie, iconic.
It's everything.
The best thing I've ever seen on a screen.
Oh my god.
It's so good. Also, can we talk about the cast
Oh,
of this
yes.
movie? Because
to
I
start
think
with
the
that.
cast is so important. One, there will be no Paris Hilton slander
None.
at all.
She did
Like,
amazing.
I will throw hands if anybody
Don't
says
step
anything
to my
bad about
girl.
Paris Hilton because she did so good in this movie. Like, there could have been so many. I know she got a lot of hate. Like, it was right in her like prime heyday for everything, but she was so good.
And okay, can I say, I had known, and I mean, when we watched this with our spooky crew back in the day, obviously I read IMDb trivia then because that's part of my movie watching experience. But I forgot part of the trivia. I just remembered all of the Watch Paris Die marketing that went into this movie. And it was only when reading the IMDb trivia once again that it reminded me that the Watch Paris Die marketing was pushed by Paris Hilton herself, who sold
Iconic.
who sold t-shirts that said on May 6th, Watch Paris Die. Like, she was the one that was like, I know my image, I know where I stand, I know what the deal is. Let me just capitalize on this real quick. Not just to promote my movie, but to get my own bag at home. Like, she's brilliant. I love her. She's incredible. She has done problematic things, but in terms of House and Wax, nothing wrong.
Absolutely.
Paris, we love
perfect.
you.
Okay, the entire time I was researching this movie, I had that commercial. Was it a commercial with her where she sings like I love Paris every moment? That song, like I love Paris in the summer and in the winter, that song.
have
It's like I
no
think it was a
clue.
perfume commercial for her and she's singing that song and I had it stuck in my head and I was like, "Yes, I do love Paris every moment."
That felt right to you.
It felt really, really good. Also, she's such a cutie patootie. She does a great job, and she wears that iconic teal tracksuit during this movie.
Oh, the
Oh,
matching red
it's so
undies
good.
underneath, the red tank top. Just an incredible color combination. First of all, the whole outfit on point. Loved everything about it, and then
brings out her eyes.
just beautiful. And so 2005.
Oh my god. And then okay, so yeah, Paris is in this, and Paris was like the beginning of this movie. They were like, Paris is going to be in the movie, and everything else revolves around that, which is how it should be, I guess. I agree. But the rest of the cast is just like banger after banger. Like, oh my god, Chad Michael Murray, love. Jared Padalecki, love.
A cute little Gilmore Girls reunion for the two of them.
I 100% forgot that Chad Michael Murray was that absolute douche from Chilton in Gilmore Girls. I'm so sorry. But yeah, that's fun. We love to see two tall, beautiful men in any film, but these specific early aughts icons, amazing. And then, okay, please remind me what Cousin Skeeter is, because like I recognize that man who plays Blake, right?
Cousin Skeeter was the
Yes.
show with the puppet.
Yeah, like
puppet is
Cousin Skeeter was a puppet, and then everybody else was human.
Kind of like the
And
one
Cousin
movie
Skeeter
that
had to
remembers.
live with his family.
Is it a horror?
No,
show?
it's just cute and
Is
funny.
No, it was like
family friendly.
wasn't it? It was like a Nickelodeon or a Disney
Yeah,
show.
I think it was
One of them.
Nickelodeon.
It was so
Wow.
good. 10 out of 10. He was one of my first like little baby crushes, not Skeeter, the actual
Not the
human
puppet?
boy. Not the
Not the
puppet.
puppet Peter himself. Shockingly, I'm really glad we're not finding out that you have a weird puppet thing right now. Like that's
That would
not
be a step
something
too far from me.
that I'm
Would have
willing
to
to hear.
break this friendship up.
Oh, okay. The guy who plays Blake, who's in Cousin Skeeter, is Robert, and then this is very exciting. His last name is Richard, but there is an accent between the Rit and the Chard.
Do we
I
know for
don't know
sure
how.
it's not like Richard or something though? I wasn't
Maybe
confident
it's
how to say
Richard.
it.
I have no idea. It isn't. I've never seen anything spelled like that before, and it was very exciting to me. And it adds to his charm. He also has beautiful eyes.
He's wonderful. either
Gorgeous.
way.
He is so delicious to look at.
Mhm.
Like never change. Like my childhood crush to now my full-blown lady adult, still there.
Mhm.
Still feeling it.
And like every single person who is in this movie is super hot. Even the fucking scary murder man, Bo, he's hot.
Very hot, actually, is the thing.
He's very hot. He was still even a little bit hot when he was Vincent too, because he plays Vincent as well.
Yes, because they're twins and they're the baddies in this movie.
Oh yeah, they're bad boy twins.
And the two main people, Chad Michael Murray, and I don't know.
Alicia Cuthbert. That's her name.
Okay, they're also twins, so I thought that was a fun little nod.
And they've got the
Oh, yes.
same evil twin, good twin dynamic going. The movie opens with a throwback flashback moment to twin little baby boys, one of whom is perfectly well behaved and one of whom is a tiny demon child and needs to be strapped into his fucking high chair.
With duct tape, along with
Yeah,
many other
they-
restraints.
Not only do they buckle him in, they duct tape on top of it, which is fucked up.
Real extreme.
Real bad.
Very unsettling.
And then we get these two twin characters, and I would just like to say this, I think, has been widely acknowledged by the movie-going community. It was acknowledged in IMDb trivia. It was acknowledged by every single spooky when we watched back in the spring. But Alicia Cuthbert and Chad Michael Murray have just absolutely inappropriate chemistry for playing twins.
Yes!
Just absolutely unreal, unhinged, inappropriate. The first glance between them on screen, so sexually charged. Like from minute
Pure
one,
sex.
immediately you're looking at them like, are they gonna fuck? No, they're twin siblings. But are they gonna fuck? I still think yes.
Definitely.
They've
Yeah,
been through
like,
a lot
sorry,
together by the end of the movie too. Like, if they were not gonna fuck from the beginning, they definitely are now. I'm just saying,
Yeah, they're fucking
the energy
trauma
is there.
bonded now. But yeah, Nick and Carly, both sexy. I think Carly looks like, oh my god, Scarlett Johansson. In my notes, I was like Black Widow woman because I couldn't remember her name for some reason. Also a babe. But yeah, they just like don't look enough alike. They look a little bit alike, but this is just raw chemistry, just like electricity, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
IMDb trivia literally was like, why did they not cast Chad Michael Murray to play Wade, who is Alicia Cuthbert's character's boyfriend in the film? Because they had such insane sexual chemistry. And Jared Padalecki is great. Jared Padalecki, we already knew as Dean from Gilmore Girls. He actually did not go. Supernatural started like several months after this movie came out. So he was actually nominated for a breakout role for this movie, which was insane to me.
wow.
But he is the character who's dating Alicia, and they're like, fine, you believe that they're dating, but you would, if you were pressed to just look at the chemistry alone in this film and guess who the siblings were, you would say it's them 100% because the exchange is not there. Like the chemistry is not the same. Especially their flirting is like kicking each other in the butt and like calling each other an asshole, and then like Chad Michael Murray and Alicia Cuthbert like get up in each other's faces, like the tension. indescribable.
Palpable.
The thing is, I would never want to have this movie where Jared Padalecki wasn't in it because I love him and his big floofy floof hair.
Oh, he's
in
great
this
as Wade.
film.
He's perfect as Wade.
Oh, yeah, he's wonderful. But also, there is no world where Jared Padalecki could be as badass as Chad Michael Murray is as Nick. Like, he has to be this baddie in this movie, and, like, I don't think that Jared Padalecki could pull it off.
No.
It's not
Jared
in his
Padalecki,
range.
there's a reason why he keeps getting cast as, high school boyfriend that you must leave and just be done with.
High school boyfriend you grow out of.
Yeah. In this one, he's high school boyfriend who you move on from to date your brother. And that makes sense.
Okay, actually though, are they in college or are they in high school? Because it was a little hard to tell, and I think I ended up deciding that they're in college. But
I think so too.
yeah, they talk about how Chad Michael Murray had gotten a football scholarship. They're like driving to see a college football game. So I think
They're
all
going
go
to an LSU game, and they live in Gainesville, which is where the University of Florida is. SEC, baby. Let's go.
Sydney's
Oh
got
my
that
fucking
Southern knowledge
God.
coming in clutch today. Yeah,
I
I think they
just
like
wanna
all
say
go to
really
college together,
quickly.
and they're talking about their like summer internships in New York.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're in college. And, like, okay, I get it. In college, you want to go to games. That's a big part of the culture. But in my notes, like, it kind of, like, went over my head for the first, like, 30 minutes of the film that they were on this road trip all to go to a football game. So in my notes, I was like, my question is this all for a sports game? Like, everything that happens in this movie is because they're trying to see a football game. And now I know that this would never happen to me. And I feel safer.
But this would
It
happen.
would 100% happen to me. I do travel for SEC football games. Like, let's go, baby.
I was gonna say also, like, Monica, the USC UCLA rivalry is so intense. It's just that both schools are in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? But like,
Yes.
100% people from both schools would drive like 6 hours to see the big game of the year between UCLA and USC if it were ever anywhere else.
It's true. It's true. I know people who drove up to the Bay for something, maybe against Cal. I don't know. I was like, sounds like a lot of work for something that I would be bored for. I will go to the party that precedes and is after it, but that's it. But okay, I mean, who else is in this movie? Dalton. Does Dalton do anything? Is he someone who's in stuff also? I feel like we should mention him, otherwise we forget he's in the film for just a second.
I would never
But I don't
forget
think
that
he's
he's in the
done
Good
film
one-liner.
because he and Nick are in love a little bit. But
No, I agree. I have extensive notes about this.
Of
I
course
have-
you do.
Oh, yes. I mean, there is like a series of quotes that I will read later of like all about their love. It's brought up multiple times throughout the film, and it's canon at this point. They are boyfriends. But that doesn't mean that Chad Michael Murray, aka Nick, doesn't also want to screw his sister. Okay, he is a bisexual man.
Bisexual king. He wears a wife beater. I think that says all you need to know about him.
he was in
I
the
don't want to get ahead
faculty.
of ourselves. Yes! Oh, that's what he's in! I knew I recognized him!
Oh, he
Okay,
doesn't
the
have a big part in
faculty-
the faculty, so I don't know why you would recognize him because IMDb just says he played "Fuck You Boy." So I don't think that's a
You
huge
don't
role.
remember Fuck You Boy? Wow.
But he was in the faculty, which is iconic. And he was also in Scary Movie and Meet the Parents, and then some other stuff. He's been working consistently.
I'm happy for him.
Good for him.
Good for you, John Abrahams. Good for you. Okay, so just starting out with this movie, I was very angry because one, when I realized that it was a sports-related road trip, I was mad. But I was also mad because like there's a lot of poor planning that went into this road trip that made me start pointing the dumb bitch finger like really early in the game.
Okay.
Well, okay, I have notes about this. Let me get down there. I took like
Shoot.
14 pages of notes on this movie. I wrote down every single whisper of a thought I had while watching this film. But okay, first off, Blake, he recommends a shortcut. When is that ever a good idea? It's never right. It's always wrong. Very, very sus. Why?
As somebody who grew up in the South and knows all the like old hog trail roads and all the back roads, stick to the interstate, my friends. You will get lost. And even I get scared sometimes where I'm like, fuck, where am I? Like, I don't know about this. Stick to the interstate. Just do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we saw the interstate didn't work out that well for them later on with the traffic, but at least you will never get stranded and murdered, you know?
Totally. And also, like, I love the weird obsession with GPS in Blake's car, like, with that everyone has. They're like, the GPS doesn't say this. They're like moving around. They're like, look at the GPS. Like, this must have been like a brand deal with like whatever this, like, I don't even know what GPS
Cadillac.
company was. Like, because it was brought up too many times. I guess 2005, that was the breakthrough in like car technology. I mean, that's exciting. Good for him. But also, like, they're driving. Shortcut doesn't work out. And Carly's like, oh, let's just camp on the side of the road. That is like never a good idea. Oh my God.
But also, why did they bring camping gear with them? Was that their plan the whole time?
I guess it was going to be for tailgating. You know what I mean? You know how some people.
But you don't
Like,
you don't
tent?
bring a tent, like a camping tent to tailgate. You bring a tailgating tent to
But
tailgate.
his
and they're
was like
different.
a nice. It wasn't like your normal average camping tent. Like I don't believe that Blake is somebody who like goes camping in the woods. It was like a tent that had like a little patio piece coming out, like a nice shade.
Those were
His was
camping tents.
okay, but he don't
You
look me in
don't
my
use those to tailgate.
I know that's not a tailgate tent. I'm saying that's like a cool guy drinking outside tent.
No.
I know that's a camping tent, but you can't look at me in my face and tell me that Blake goes camping in the mountains with that tent.
No, he definitely doesn't go camping at all. But like, you wouldn't, as somebody who has been to an LSU game, like, you don't bring any kind of tent like that
It would
to there.
get way
Like,
too hot in there. You can't hang out in that. It's an enclosed space.
So in my notes, I also have where I was just like, this is factually inaccurate. Like, we're there sleeping, and then they're like, it's 2:30. I'm like, baby, you're like in Louisiana in September. You
No,
are not
winter.
sleeping in a tent.
It's winter. They say at one point it's winter because it's getting dark, and she's like, "Ugh, winter." And then I in my
Oh,
notes was
true.
like, "But girl, you've been in a tank top for the last 35 minutes."
Here's the thing, in winter, there's no football games like that. Like, unless it's fall. It's fall. Like, football game is in the fall. There is no football in winter. It is in the fall.
I don't know what to tell you. This movie didn't make any mistakes, so you've got to be the one who's wrong.
No, but I totally agree with you because, like, they wake up the next day, and I know they were partying till late at night the night before, but, like, who sleeps in till 2:30 the next day? Like, the sun wakes you up at the crack of dawn when you're in a tent. There is nothing
Yes!
you can do about it. It doesn't matter how hungover you are.
Nope.
Trust me, it doesn't matter how hungover you are. You are awake, and you are upset
At like
about it.
7:30 in the morning. You are hot, you are sticky, or you're freezing cold. But like, it is, I'm guessing like September. And then
Yeah.
and they're just wrong about the seasons.
Were
Like,
they
it's hot
sedated,
still.
maybe? Like, is that some like a subtext we didn't know about? They were all drugged, and that's why they slept till 2:30 the next day? Doesn't make any sense.
I just feel like you guys are questioning the internal logic of this movie when we've all already agreed that it's flawless. And so you're gonna have to stop because I'm gonna get mad.
I'm going to continue because I have to, but also just because there are things that don't make sense doesn't mean that this movie isn't the most perfect movie that has ever been made, ever in the history of movies.
Okay, fair
Besides the win.
Listen, as an avid sports girl, I have some questions about their sporting events in this movie.
Okay. Well, it's a
Okay, also, one thing that we did fly by, as I want to go back when they are like right before they get camping and they have to take this detour. They are in two separate cars,
Oh,
and uh, one of the cars drives up, and they're like filming, and you just see Paris Hilton giving the cousin Skeeter just roadhead.
Cousin Skeeter wrote
I
it.
will not acknowledge his name. And so she like calls them on their cell phone, and she's like, my lip balm, I just dropped my lip balm. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. And it definitely is a nod to her sex tape.
100%.
Okay, this is
100%.
interesting though, because there are several moments where they're being sexy and Dalton is secretly filming them without their knowledge or consent, and then they realize and be like, stop. But somebody apparently in an interview asked Paris if it was like a reference, and she's just like, it was already in the script. So either Paris is a genius and knows how to make fun of herself, but didn't want to publicly reference her sex tape, but was like kind of doing a wink and a nod, or I don't know, but I do know they built this whole cast around Paris. Paris was cast first. I absolutely in my heart believe they wrote this role for Paris. That was not on IMDb trivia, but I know it to be true.
Oh, they did.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, just because it wasn't like her idea, that's 100% the intent of the writer with her
Yes.
being in this role.
And then
Like, there's no
okay,
other way.
You know that's why they made her do a striptease. Also because that scene, and I'm hopping ahead just for a second and then we'll go back. But that scene doesn't even make sense because they're like by themselves. They're getting sexy. They're doing a striptease. She takes her tank top off over her hips for some reason. Don't ask why. And then as soon as they're about to get into it, she's like, wait, but I need to talk to you about my pregnancy scare. Like, truly, the striptease scene was thrown in just because they were like, Paris has to get naked in this movie.
She did look great,
She was
though.
incredible.
So.
She was incredible.
That matching lingerie.
But they were like, let's have her get naked because we need her to be naked. But also, oh yeah, we forgot that we added in this pregnancy scare subplot. So let's address this real quick before everybody gets murdered.
I will say though, the pregnancy thing we didn't need. Like,
No.
didn't need.
They're trying like to like desperately add some depth to those two characters, but like no, like they didn't put in the work enough to do that. But Paris has depth all on her own, and I want to give some shine to Blake because I mean I don't want to skip ahead too much, but we're talking about the scene right now. I was out of all of the deaths, which we will get into the rest of them in much more detail because they deserve more detail. But Blake, I feel like gets shafted
for sure
with his death scene because Blake has some freaking star amazing quotes in this film, and they're completely overlooked, and all he gets is a stab in the neck, and then he gets the knife kicked in his neck a little bit more. But he deserved something much more dramatic, okay? They could have zoomed in on his glistening blue eyes a few more times. Like, there could have been a lot more to do. But, like, you don't just stab a man in the neck who says iconic lines like this one. What did he say? He said, he looks like Elton John, only more gay. And then Dalton's like, Elton John is gay? Great line. Amazing line. And then, also, I loved this part too. And IMDb destroyed this quote online. They're like, Wade, they all start smelling the dead smell, which is just a very grotesque concept, which we will get into in a second. And Wade's like, oh, something's definitely dead out there. And then Blake's like, no, something's dead out here, and we need to drink it back to life.
He's like, this party died, bro. We gotta get these vibes back up.
You know the fucking vibes.
And Blake consistently throughout the movie is all about the vibes. The reason that he runs away to his death right as Paris Hilton is about to tell him that she's pregnant with his child is because his vibey, sexy song gets turned off. And he's like, no, the vibes! I must save the vibes! And he runs out and just gets lanced right in the neck immediately. He dies for the
I
vibes.
gets to listen to that spooky voicemail from Carly, which is very plot relevant and incredible that there was so much information contained on that voicemail. Just wow.
Carly's great at imparting knowledge.
Carly picks up on this situation like real fast. Like she's just like, I know everything that's going on here. I am aware.
Yeah, Carly is a really good final girl, I would say. I guess they're final twins in this movie, but she does some absolutely epic stuff, and she also like has pretty good dar for like things
Did you
being
just
wrong, like you're just saying.
shorten radar?
Yes,
I love it.
that's a thing that people do.
She's got some
People
good
being mean.
apostrophe dar.
Some good dar, okay? This is the thing
Okay.
that maybe I made up, but I think it's a real thing. There are some questionable moves that she makes, though. Like, I don't know about you, but if I'm out in the woods and I'm late to this game that is important to me, I'm taking a piss and I smell a horrible smell, do I run towards the nasty smell in the woods? No. 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 Why would anyone ever? Do you want to find a dead body and be horribly traumatized for the rest of your life? I personally do not. I don't know about you guys. What do you think?
She's got an inquisitive spirit for sure.
And again, Paris Hilton coming in with straight facts. She's like, oh yeah, let's go follow the smell. Like, why would you want to go follow this? Like, Paris Hilton knows what's
Paris
up.
Hilton voice
Exactly.
of reason.
Seriously.
Yes.
That pit of roadkill that Carly falls into, that's like maybe that could be my worst nightmare. To fall one as someone who has fallen off the bed arms first while trying to reach my phone that is skittered away quite far, and then I'm falling and there's nothing I can do except for crash my face into the ground or scream for my boyfriend to pull me back up. That's a horrible position to be in, and even worse when your arms are just stuck into corpses. I can't imagine anything worse. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, obviously, there are a lot of gross visuals in this movie. I think I saw this movie on TV in like 8th grade or something the first time. And we'll get to them later, but there are two particularly disturbing body horror moments that made me feel phantom pain for like a week. But watching this movie back, every single time she falls face first into the decomp pile, I'm like, this is the nastiest part of this movie. And then I watch the rest of it and I get reminded that things get 1,000 times worse.
Yeah.
But in that scene, every time I'm just like, I cannot think of anything worse than this. Like, this is terrifying, disgusting. Like, the movie has me gagging so much throughout. Truly, it is so, the horror of it is so visceral.
And I usually hate, like, not hate, but like there's a reason I have not watched any of the Saw movies, and that will change eventually with this podcast, I know. But like I'm not crazy about like the like absolutely insane chop off everyone's fingers and nose and ears and all that stuff. I don't like that kind of torture porn shit. But like this movie is so good that I will tolerate it. So that's saying a lot. But I will say that I'm happy that the disgusting roadkill pile exists because it leads to one of the sexiest moments in the movie between two twin siblings.
Yeah.
When Carly's beautiful shirt is smeared with corpse blood, and Nick's like, "Here, sis, let me help you out." Not a direct quote, and just like sexy takes off his wife beater outfit. I shouldn't call that tank top. And gives it to her, and I was just like, God, you can't be that sexy taking off your shirt for your sister.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad you did it anyway.
In my notes, I literally was like, Nick stripping his shirt off to give it to Carly. This is sexual. And then all the boys like gather around her to shield her as she strips her own shirt off and puts it on. Like, I mean, I could not ask for more from this movie. Like, if Scream is Sydney's initial awakening in the horror world, like this was mine for sure.
Oh,
this is such a great one too. Like,
what a beautiful door into this world. I'm so jealous. I don't know what mine was, but it wasn't something this good. That's for sure.
So much of what I want at every moment. And I have questions because you're right, and I concede there are some things that maybe don't quite make sense, but I don't need them to make sense, and I will have those questions, but I still, again, no complaints.
No, absolutely. Like, I was like yelling when it was over because it ended with Helena, but also because I just was so euphoric. And I tried to like burst into Adam's room to tell him about this, his office, and he was like, absolutely not, I'm working. And so then I just had to keep it inside for 24 hours until we're recording today. So that's why I'm like freaking shaking right now because I'm so excited.
Yeah, this movie is just incredible, iconic. Everything's amazing. Nick stripping off his shirt to give it to Carly is when you really get hooked and you realize what you're in for, which is rooting for these two twins to fuck each other. But here's the thing, the movie wants it just as bad as you do. There's no way they recorded this movie and didn't realize what they'd done. You know what I mean? Like, I think the
Yeah.
movie is fully on board. They had been like mean to, okay, Carly and Nick have this familial tension, and that they're like, our parents think you're the good twin and they think I'm the bad twin, and we've both kind of leaned into this willingly or not, so we don't always get along. But also you see that like while Nick is gonna poke Carly and like frustrate her on purpose, like annoy her on purpose, he also cares about her so much. Like in the beginning, they have that first heated gaze, but he also makes Dalton stop filming her because she doesn't like it. But then he's like, oh, because you're pretending to be something you're not. Which, by the way, I don't know what that means. And they never really circle back to it. But there's like two lines like that where he's like, oh, you're under pressure, whatever. But he defends her from Dalton's filming, and then he takes his shirt off literally takes the shirt off his back to give it to her. Just really sets the tone for the push and pull between these two.
They are in love, and not in a familial way.
You cannot tell me otherwise. I won't believe it, and I won't hear it, and I won't entertain the conversation.
This movie and Life with Derek, I'm here for it. Let's go.
Okay, but Life with Derek though, they're step siblings.
So they're allowed.
They are not of blood related, so that's fine. That's fine. Do what you want to do. They were one egg and it split into two eggs. Like that's
Well, that's not
that's
true.
what's
Because
happening.
Monica.
they're fraternal twins.
They're fraternal twins.
Okay,
They were not
sorry,
one
I don't
egg.
know how it works. Their eggs were touching in the womb. Their eggs were next to each other.
Yeah, I don't know. If you ask me,
Oh my God.
Is this chemistry on accident? I can't tell you what the intentions were of the filmmakers, but I can tell you when the movie is about two sets of twins and they both have kind of twisted relationships, it's hard for me to think that that's not on purpose.
No, yeah. It was obvious. There's obvious sexual tension between Bo and Vincent as well, so it's a big parallel there. I'm kidding.
Okay, Bo and Vincent probably did share an egg, Monica.
Yes,
I think
because they were conjoined twins, so
Well,
I feel
not
like that's how
because
that
they were
happened.
conjoined, but because they were identical.
Well, yes, because
Yeah.
they're played by the same man, and they were conjoined. Anyway, we're not going to talk about
We're not
science.
going to do a lesson on genetics, even if some of us could, but
Okay,
But anyway,
there's a plot hole in this movie that like really bugged me.
what is it?
So, when she falls into the pit, and like we already learned that Jared Padalecki's car, his like whatever motor belt thing,
fan belt.
is ruined.
His 15-inch fan
Yeah.
belt, he desperately needs a
It's a
replacement.
fan belt.
Yes. Why don't they just call AAA? Like their phones work out there. Like these people, at least you know that cousin Skeeter dude, he drives a Cadillac. He has AAA. Like he pays for that. Like why don't they just call
Well,
AAA?
They probably.
AAA didn't
well,
wanna
for me,
sponsor this
AAA
movie.
takes like 10,000 years, and they're also in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. So I feel like in the effort to get to the game on time, because my whole life revolves around the game, they're like, oh, if we just go to this town that's 5 seconds away, we can just get one and come back and fix it ourselves in 5 seconds. And Jared Padalecki, aka Wade, seems like a man who knows about cars and wants to put his hands on it himself, and just fix it himself. He's a fix-it man,
This car's like his baby.
100%.
I don't know,
You
rule
see
number
that car?
one.
It's a sexy car. I don't know what kind of car it is.
It's a
but
Dodge
it's a
Charger
sexy car.
of some year. It was an
Mm.
MTV.
Of some year.
I'm pretty sure that's the same car in Supernatural, but I didn't really watch that show, so I don't know for sure. And it also doesn't
That
matter.
would be an exciting through line. But okay, so at the point of the film that we are in currently, we finally get a little bit of a reprieve from the unbridled sexual tension between Carly and Nick because they go their separate ways.
Yeah, the
So
movie's
you
like,
can
get
finally
away from each
breathe.
other. Let's remind
You
everybody
can
she
breathe
has an
for a
actual
second.
boyfriend.
Yes, this is her floofy-haired boyfriend. Oh, also, okay, just have to say that quote where I think it's Dalton asks Wade if he asked for the He-Man haircut absolutely kills me. Absolutely spot fucking on. Also, I was very mad at my autocorrect because it autocorrected He-Man to German, and so I was reading my notes and I was like, his German haircut? That doesn't make any fucking sense. But yeah, 100% He-Man. Then I had that song from that meme video, the yeah song stuck in my head for like an hour after that quote, so it was a wild ride for me. But anyway, another part of this movie where I really fucked things up was that I was really convinced that the roadkill man was just a weird guy who was nice. I was like, they're being so mean to him, and he's probably just a strange man who is nice. Like, I have like 5 different notes being like, he could just be weird. He's all alone out here. Someone's got to do it. If you're around the smell enough, you probably wouldn't notice it anymore. But yeah, he is still pretty creepy. So and at the end you realize that I was very, very wrong, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do spoilers for a moment. But so the central conceit of the film is that there are these 2 twins, one's good, one's bad. We learn as the movie goes that they are Vincent and Beau, and Vincent is the one who wears a scary, scary mask, and he does the wax figures. Beau is the one who kind of is like the murder guy, essentially. Although we've seen Vincent perfectly capable of doing murder as well. In fact, proficient at it, if you will.
Vincent is an artiste.
Yes.
He is an artiste. And then
At
also
anything he does.
they also try to make it like a huge twist at the end where they're like, actually, Beau was the crazy one from the beginning. When they like do a shot of the 2 little like baby seats and one says Beau and that's the one with like blood and duct tape and all this crazy shit on it. So they're like, you thought the guy with the crazy face was the crazy one, but you're wrong. He's the reasonable one. And
Literally was like, wow,
I'm like, wow, what a twist.
how dare you think that the one who is ugly is the one who is evil? That's on you. But then
Shaming you right there.
there's an additional twist at the end of the movie where they're like, there's a 3rd brother. And you find out it was the creepy guy who lured them and loves the dead animals.
His
and says
name
he
is
eats
Lester.
roadkill. Yes, Lester is his unwritten name in the film. And apparently, per IMDb trivia, from a blooper that's like on the DVD extras, it's revealed that Lester is the one who like sabotaged Wade's car and the fan belt. So you see he's even more plot relevant than he seems. So it's really just an incredible 3-man operation here. And
Yeah, because there's nobody else in this town but these 3 brothers.
truly nobody else, nobody around for miles. The only
No.
reason they even realized that this town still existed basically is when they saw the smoke at the end of the movie. But okay, so the usual setup for their schemes essentially is that Lester lures people off the road and like helps them basically like, oh, I'll take you into town so you can blah blah blah. This movie, they truly just got unlucky in where they pulled over and then Lester took advantage of that. But all 3 brothers were on scene in that middle of the night, that first camping night in the woods, because We see that Bo's truck drives up. We learn later that someone was filming them, and we learn later that Vincent is the one that has the cameras. And we know from the blooper on the DVD extras that Lester's the one who sabotaged the car. Like, truly, the family unity here, like the team effort, is kind of beautiful.
It's really lovely. It's
They
really
really
something
depend
to
on each other.
aspire
They
to.
work together. Like, is Bo mean? Yes. Is Bo the toxic brother? For sure. But, like, they've all got each other's backs in the end,
Yeah, and they forgive Bo for that because he's so sexy. They're like, you're a little mean, but you're so hot, and so we're gonna let it slide. Yeah, it is beautiful to see that type of unity. Wonderful. Makes me long for a sibling. Is that what
Which
it's
kind
like,
of,
Chelsea and Sydney? Is that what it's like?
It's more
I don't know, I
like
don't
that than
plot murder.
win.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't plot murder or have sexual chemistry with my brothers, so I don't
I
know.
would say my
Too
brother and
bad.
I are more likely to plot a murder than to have sexual chemistry. How's that?
I'm happy to hear that, actually. That's the outcome I would like to hear.
My brother has tried to kill me a couple times, so that's fine.
There you
Oh,
go.
good,
Okay, that's the murder right there.
Okay, so once they get into town, I start making my case for being mad at Wade almost immediately.
Okay.
'Cause he starts doing real dumb shit
He's
right
such a
from the
dick.
get-go. I love him. I love him and his fluffy hair, but he just doesn't really have good boundaries at all or respect people's space at all. And it is the reason that he gets yeeted first. So that's 100% a thing. But okay, the first thing that happens pretty much when they get into this very scary, lonely town, besides the fact that Carly gets excited about some puppies that turn out to be fake puppies, is that they accidentally walk in on a funeral, which is something that is probably something I would never imagine happening, but is probably the most embarrassing thing that could possibly happen. Like, you could never feel worse about doing something accidentally, walking in on like the saddest moment ever. And I was like, God, that'll never happen to me. Huh. And then, so I watched that yesterday morning. Them walking into the funeral, felt a lot of anxiety about that scene. And then later on in the day, I went on a bike ride to Forest Lawn to visit my mom's grave, and I was biking in wearing a shirt that said, "Get out of my way, I'm going for a ride," which is already a very disrespectful shirt to wear to a cemetery, but it is my biking shirt and I only have a few of them. And I pulled into Forest Lawn, and there's like 26 cars parked on the side of the road. And I was like, okay, well, something is occurring, most likely a funeral. I will continue biking because they're parked, so it's going to be
Yeah,
fine.
you're trying to be respectful and polite. You're like, let me get out of their way.
Exactly. So I'm just biking up the hill, and all of a sudden I see a man like step out into the road next to me and do this like big gesture, like, "Come on, boys, like, come on down." And I was like, oh my God. What I realized was that is the staging area for the car funeral processions, like when you follow the hearse up the road. And the man, even though he was literally looking at me, was like, "Now's the time, we must go," while this woman on a bike is directly next to you. So the whole funeral procession pulls out. I'm like in the middle of the road, like on the wrong side of the road. And I'm like, every car that goes past is like staring at me like, "What the hell are you doing in the middle of our funeral procession?" And then one lady took pity on me and like stopped and let me literally cross through the funeral procession to get to the side to safety. And I was like, I never thought I'd be in a situation so similar to Wade and Carly, but here we are interrupting a funeral, and I really felt for them in that moment. It was terrible. I can't believe I did it.
Yeah, May, Sydney, and I never find ourselves in that position. It sounds
I never wish
horrible.
this upon you.
I just, it's like so awkward in the movie for sure. And the awkwardness is truly what saves them from realizing there's something funky going on in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Which is further bad because if they had been within their full capacity to pay attention instead of trying to hide their faces and getting the fuck out of that church, maybe they would have immediately started running at that moment. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Just sounds bad for just a variety of reasons beyond uncomfy.
Totally. And then Bo comes out and he's freaking pissed and if it had been a real funeral, I would think, okay, he has every right to be pissed that these people just walked in on this funeral where he is actively weeping. But like the reveal later on in the film when you realize that like it's a fake funeral and he has like made a wax figure of his or like encased his dead mom in wax and like just goes to her fake funeral like every day. That is a very deeply disturbing part of this movie. I was like, oh, okay, so we got some real big mommy issues here and they are clear as day.
Just absolutely astronomical mommy issues.
And we should have known from the opening scene that there was definitely mommy issues there. Maybe that's why he's so hot.
Oh my god.
Sydney. We will unpack this at a later date.
Yeah, that's a conversation for another time, I think. No time to get into that now. It's too large a conversation for what we can do here on this podcast.
Okay, but I have to say that it was super relatable for me that Wade was so obsessed with this wax museum, like from the get-go. Like he sees a sign and he's like, wax museum. And as someone who's been to several, I feel very similarly, but I also would not break into a closed wax museum. That just seems like it goes without saying.
And then
the door was unlocked.
Huh?
The door was unlocked.
I know. I feel like that's still a bad call. But if I did for some reason break into a closed wax museum, even if the door was unlocked, I certainly at that point would not start picking up wax objects and holding my lighter up to them to see if they will immediately melt. Like, what is wrong with him?
Yeah, I was like, what screw is loose in your brain? Like, you absolute heathen. Like, what are you doing right now? And then he just continues to like violate, like just break and enter into everything. Like Bo, who is at a funeral, we assume, is 15 minutes late to their meeting time. And Wade's like, we're just gonna go in and we're gonna take what's ours. And Carl's like, maybe we should not do that. But Wade's like, no. It's been 15 minutes past 30. So that's way too long. He had his time to grieve and now it's over. Wade doesn't give a shit.
But Wade does get spooked by the real live dog that he was like, oh, look at this wax puppy. Surprise, it's a real dog. That made me jump.
Oh my God. That was one of the first, like, that was like the second big jump scare for me. First is when she falls into murder, death, roadkill pit.
Yes. I know a lot of people don't like they think it's like cheap with the jump scares, but I love the jump scares. They like do something for me.
They're very
love a
fun in
little
this
boo.
movie. This whole movie, the whole thing is just that it's fun. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's like the most joyous, like wild ride. Like that's just the happiest I've been watching a movie in like many moons. And we watch a lot of good movies on this pod, but like nothing makes me feel this way.
This movie radiates joy in a like totally fucked up way that I love.
Okay, so like I know we're going through this plot by plot, but we won't do that for the whole time. But like there's just one more thing I have to say that like is adding up. This is adding up to my list of ticks against Wade. When they're like, "Oh, let's go to Bo's house and have him get the 15-inch what's it called?
Fan
Car
belt.
person Chelsea.
Fan
belt. Thank
Car
you.
person Chelsea. I just paid attention.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. You remember words quicker than I do.
I just don't want you to rely on me if you ever have car trouble. I'm sorry. That was so rude. I just don't want you to be like, who do I know that's a car person in a pinch and think of me, because you will be left stranded.
I would not ever, in that context, think of you, but I mean that in a kind way because I
Yes.
wouldn't think of me either or Sydney. So, but yeah, so they get to Bo's house. What?
Sorry.
You
I
okay?
looked at my notes and I remembered something Wade did that just made me so mad. But you say what you're saying about Wade, and then if it's not the same thing, I'll say mine.
Okay, well, when Wade goes into Bo's house and he goes to the bathroom and he immediately starts going on a snoop fest,
Mhm.
which begins with him being like, okay, and I don't blame him for this because Sydney and I both like taxidermy quite a bit. He sees that like fetal
Yes!
pig or
Yes!
cow
That's what I just looked at in my notes.
in the glass thing and he picks it up and like the doofiest doofus that ever doofed. He's like, doo doo doo. Like he literally even makes that sound. Like he shakes it around. He's like, look at the piggy move. Yay. I'm like, are you an infant? Like, what's going on with you?
Yeah, I wrote
Meanwhile,
in my notes, Wade, stop being such a nosy fucking bitch, you bitch. And then when Wade shakes the fetal pig, I gasped. And then I gasped just now remembering it when I saw my notes. Like, that moment is truly all that I needed to see pack it up for Wade's character, ready for him to get got from that point forward.
oh my God. Yeah. And he goes into the scary murder, like, surgery lounge. And I'm like, honey, are you asking to die? You are. You're saying, please kill me with these many scalpels and scissors that are around here right now. I am asking to be murdered. Meanwhile, what do we think is going through Carly's head? Is Carly like, damn, Wade is taking a fat shit right now? Because he's in there for a long time. This is immediately suspect.
Well, that's when she calls cousin Skeeter and Paris Hilton. Yeah, I'm like, I keep wanting to call him Brad, and I'm like, no, that's not right.
Close. You can
And
do
she's
that.
like, hey, something's definitely wrong. I think this is definitely the guy in the car from last night. Like, SOS, please save us.
Yeah, there's a moment when they're in Lester's truck earlier in the movie where after they get out where she's like, is this the truck from last night? Which immediately I was like, no, you dumb hoe. Like, you're so smart and I love you and you're perfect and I think that you're great. But this car is like, this truck is not fancy. It's totally run down. Don't you remember the truck from last night had all kinds of lights on it? And then when she gets out of Bo's truck is when we see that she notices the broken headlight and then she puts it together. So she was on the right track, and I'm so sorry for calling her a dumb hoe. That's when she starts to realize what's going on. She's like, Wade has been inside for too long. This is the truck. She immediately locks herself in. Thank God she had the keys. That's when her true final girl form appears, really shows itself that she's like, I'm not fucking around here. I'm gonna make it to the end. Incredible.
Absolute badass bitch shit right there. When Bo's like breaking through the window, grabbing her legs, pulling her out, and she like uses her hands to like hit the gas and
Yes.
spin the car around. I was like, this is so sexy. But then she immediately fucks it up. I mean, it wouldn't be a movie if she gets away right then, but I was like, oh, it was so cool. And then you immediately knock the truck off the side of some weird ledge. So I was like, ah.
Some real bad
So
luck
close.
to get the truck stuck and to have her phone fall away from her, be somewhere she can't reach it. Just not a lot of things going Carly's way in this moment.
No. But okay.
Okay, but
You go.
Jared Padalecki, when he's snooping around, he's the first one to get got officially, right? Like he is, and it's Vincent that does it,
Yeah.
or could it be Bo? Like, because
It's
he's also in the
Vincent.
house,
It's Vincent, because you see
right?
that
Like,
Vincent.
Yeah.
oh, I didn't notice that.
You see them
It's
I
fighting
did not
at
notice
one
He's
that.
point, but it starts when you just see the scissors, and as soon as I saw the scissors come on my screen, I started gagging, because when Jared Padalecki gets his Achilles heel snipped was one of those. Thank you. That was one of those moments that stayed with me and made my ankle hurt for like a week after I first saw this movie.
that I didn't see this movie when it came out. I didn't see this movie until this summer with you guys, but I knew about the ACL snip. I knew about it. I thought it happened to Paris Hilton though. I
She
got
also
confused.
gets
I
her
don't know.
heel stabbed at one point in the movie. There's
Yes.
a lot of heel
So
Yeah.
torture going on.
but I was like, I, that's why I didn't watch this for so long because of that. I was
It's
because
truly traumatizing to watch.
and you know when you get that snipped, if it snips or gets ripped, it like curls up in the top of your leg. It goes zoop. Yeah, so think about that too, and then barf another time because it is horrifying.
Yeah. There's this there were I mentioned there were 2 body horror moments in this movie that really stayed with me. Now that you've called it a snip, they're both snips that really get me. And you can infer at this point what the second snip is. There's a lot of horrible body moments. You know, we see when Paris gets got later on, a pole goes through her head and she slides down on it. Like, we see her get stabbed in the foot. But it's the 2 snips that are just like, I cannot bear to watch them again. I literally will cover the whole screen with my hands as I'm watching it so I can't look at it. Like the second those snipping instruments are introduced to my television screen, I have to look away. I cannot sit through it. It's too much for me.
Ugh. Well, okay, so now we're at this juncture. Juncture? Is that a word?
Yeah.
Junction?
Sure. Why not?
Sure, whatever. Let's talk about the deaths because we've gotten to the point where they begin, so we can go in and say what our favorite ones are and our, runners up. Because honestly, all the main deaths in this movie are amazing, except for poor Blake, but we already went over that. So, I mean, poor Wade honestly just keeps getting fucked and fucked and fucked.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's almost too much.
IMDb trivia was like fans felt too bad for Wade. Like they felt like he got unfairly got.
Yes, like he was a douche, but he didn't deserve that. He was a nice boy.
Wade's waxification was like very sensual.
We should have seen his dick. We should have seen his dick. This was an R-rated movie. If there were ever a time to show us a dick, that was the moment.
I'm glad that you also call it the waxification. The waxification of Wade is an alliteration that I really enjoy and also was truly disturbing. I forgot that they fucking literally like waxed off his eyebrows and his stubble. That was just something that was so mean and unnecessary and gave us that shot of Jared Padalecki without eyebrows, and that was like a horror onto itself.
I will say though, I am glad that they waxed off his like weird facial hair because it just looked real
Yeah,
bad.
but then they
And
added it back on.
I know.
But all right, what else happens to Wade that is notable? There's so much.
Oh. This really wigged me out, which is I think my favorite just scene in this movie. When Dalton is like Nick and Dalton have like arrived on scene and Nick is looking for his sister or he's not looking for his sister, he's like looking for a grocery store, and Dalton just like wanders and moseys around, and he walks into the wax museum and he's just like looking around, and then he's like, Wade, because Wax Wade is sitting at a piano, and he's like looking at him, and he pokes his face and realizes he's made of wax, and Wade's eyes move.
He's still alive.
Because he's still
Literally,
alive.
that's the worst part of
And
it.
so-
Like the Achilles heel is bad,
Yes!
but the fact that he's been through this whole waxification and is left to just slowly die within the wax is what's the most horrifying part. But it's the visual of that. Go ahead.
But here's like, Dalton he's like, oh my god, you're made of wax. So he starts peeling the wax. But like, wax is hot. And so he's like ripping off the skin when you're ripping off the wax. And so you see like, just like the bloody tissue under it and his like eyes. And you could see him crying. Because like, and then Vincent comes and just like hits Dalton in the head. And in doing that, like, slices off a piece of Wade's face, so we see his teeth and just.
It is
Oh my
so
God.
disgusting. I love it so much.
It's my favorite death, hands down.
But that leads me to another great death, which is Dalton's death.
Dalton's
Because
death
he
is
gets,
great.
it's not that amazing on its own necessarily, but there are some really incredible details to it. Because he gets thrown down the stairs during his fight with Vincent, and then Vincent beheads him, but he doesn't just like take a machete and whack his head off. He has these like twin knives, which are either a dragon or a snake or something. They're sick as hell, and he uses it to like twin chop off Dalton's head, and then the head rolls and then it blinks.
The blinking was
Yes.
so extra and perfect.
It's
Oh.
so
And also,
the knives, beautiful, incredible, close up on the knives, love it, and then the blink just
and the staircase that Dalton like tumbles down is so aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
Like I love the fact that Benson just loves the candles all around. Like
Oh
the
my God.
ambiance in this evil villain lair, chef's
it's
kiss.
a shame
The
that
set
he
in this
killed
movie
Blake
is
because they're both all about the vibes.
totally.
Listen,
But honestly, the sets in this movie are absolutely incredible. Like there's this one part where they're in the spooky underground caverns or whatever the fuck that Beau and Vincent like to hang out in, and there's like wax faces like melted into a wall. Like, oh, there's so many little details of this movie. Like the fact that every little tiny thing in the entire house is made of wax, even like the plates that Dalton tries to use to yeet Vincent out of his way. And I'm like, oh honey, that would have been a great idea, but they're not real, so you're screwed. Everything actually is made of wax except for the piano.
That was
Yeah,
I know
piano's wax,
I remembered
piano.
that everything was made of wax, and then when Wade was first playing the piano, I was like, they put a real piano in here. Just of all the
Structurally,
things.
how does this work? I do not know. Like, I don't think this is up to code to have the whole place literally made of wax, but we don't ask questions. We just enjoy.
I mean, that truly is the real testament to Vincent's artistic talents, because there's a moment, we know that Vincent is like the heir to the wax fortune in that sense. Like, he takes over for Mom Trudy, who was the wax artist before him. But we
Mhm.
learn later on in the film during some nice, not too heavy-handed, I thought incredibly well done exposition between Beau and Vincent, that Vincent has upped his wax creation game by covering real bodies in wax instead of like fully sculpting them from wax itself and nothing underneath. I thought it was a little bit cheating. It's like tracing a drawing, you know what I mean? Instead of like
Yeah.
freehanding a drawing. There's room for that in art, but if like sculpture is your whole thing, it seems a little unfair to just cover people in wax. But he put the facial hair back on so well, actually. He clearly has talent. But the fact that he made this whole house out of wax, everything in it is wax, that's incredible.
But also he has great sculpting abilities. You see him sculpting that titty in the beginning, and that was
Lovingly.
beautiful.
The perfect thing.
Lovingly sculpting that titty.
Okay, but here's the thing about that titty. There's a deleted scene from the beginning of the movie where Lester lured another girl off the road, and so that titty that we see being sculpted is theoretically on top of a human body. So that he sculpts it so beautifully because we see him putting in that work. We see it go from like a rough pile of wax to a nice titty. But that's also not totally a wax sculpture. There's another person under there too, in theory.
Totally. Yeah. But okay, I thought the subtext of that scene with Beau and Vincent was that it seemed like Beau, who we find out is the unhinged one, the truly unhinged one, the little crazy baby from the beginning of the film. It seemed to me like he convinced Vincent to start covering dead bodies with the wax.
I agree.
Like the killing of people, I feel like was Beau's idea, and Vincent was like, well, that would make things easier. And so kind of went along with it.
And then we see Vincent at some point gets into it on his own, which is interesting actually, because Vincent is the one that goes and kills Blake and Paige, Skeeter's cousin and Paris Hilton, because he like goes to their campsite by himself. So he must have gone with one of the other brothers under their supervision earlier, probably Bo, that first night. Because when he comes back and Bo sees the bodies, Bo is like, how dare you go off by your own? You're not supposed to do that. So I wonder if those are Vincent's like first kills, which if they were, he did amazing. You know what I mean? Although I think
Oh my
he's better than
god.
doing some of the killing in town because he was the one that got creative with the scissors with Wade. So he's got
Yeah.
ideas in there. You know what I mean? Like Bo is rubbing off on
Yeah.
him for sure. But the whole quote at that point is, hey, town's looking real good. We're almost finished what Mama started. Those two are good. They'll fit perfect. What did I tell you, huh? Isn't your work more real now? Ma would be proud. Yeah, she'd be real proud. She always said that your talent would make up for what God took away from you. There's two more. We've still got a lot of work to do. So I think definitely Bo, he also yells at him at one point where he's like, hey, you don't ever leave here without me. You know better than that. Don't be so stupid. What's the matter with you? Like, Bo is clearly breaking Vincent down so that he can build Vincent back up.
But
Which don't put up for behaviors like that in your life, first of all. But these two have an unhealthy thing going on. I 100% am willing to believe that Vincent could have turned out a nice, normal, functioning member of society if he didn't have these two horrible brothers in his life.
mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Okay, I think it's time that we discuss Paris's getting got.
Okay.
Because this is, I think, I agree that Wade's death is probably the best of all of these, but Paris's death is why everybody came to the theater. And
Oh, people were applauding and like cheering. This was a incredibly enjoyable theater watching experience.
I'm so jealous that you got to see this in theaters. When we have Martin Short and Steve Martin fund our filming, our movie theater where I don't remember what we said, film festival of sorts.
Mhm.
This will be one of the films. The Witch, immediately followed by House of Wax, so you can feel joy again afterwards. And we will hoot and holler just like it was still 2005. But Paris, poor Paris. The lead up to her Paige, excuse me. The lead up to her death is so sad because she's trying to be vulnerable with her boy, and she's about to tell him this important thing, but he only cares about the vibes, and then he goes and gets got, and she has to just run out into the woods with no shoes on. Oh God,
No shoes,
no shoes
just in
on.
her
You knew it was
sexy
gonna be bad.
underwear and an oversized men's open button down. Incredible outfit, so sexy. She looks amazing even without the velour turquoise jumpsuit. Just gorgeous, stunning, hilarious that they were like, okay, we have to make Paris strip before she tries to have her I'm pregnant conversation. And then we put her just in a button down so we're not exploiting her sexiness. She's got some cover, you know what I mean? But also she is in her undies running from a murderer.
Mm-hmm. They knew that they were gonna do the most with young Paris, and she does a good job. Okay, like she's running around. She runs into this like I don't even know warehouse thing. I love when she sees like that bucket of cell phones, and she's like, "One of these could work." That's a kind of okay idea.
resourceful.
One of them could have worked. Super resourceful. Then she like goes upstairs and finds like a spear, essentially, makeshift spear. Like that's a great idea to spear someone. But again, this is another one of the snippy moments that really gets me. The idea, I don't like those type of
The graded
floors
floor, yeah.
yes, that's a great way to describe it. Graded floor anyway, because it's like an upskirt moment that I don't want to be exposed to, if I'm wearing a dress. I already am thinking of that, but I did not think of the fact that people can stab you through the holes in the ground. And that is something that I'll never not think about now.
Yeah, that moment is horrible. It didn't stick with me the way that the other two snippy moments did. And if you haven't caught on yet, my second snippy moment is when Alicia Cuthbert gets the tip of her finger chopped off. And I hate it, and it also made my
Horrible.
finger hurt for many days after I watched this movie. But there are two, this movie is one of the most visceral horror movies for me with visuals that I really remember. And then there's another one that I also saw on TV when I was way too young. called, I think, Valentine or whatever, with David Boreanaz, and there's a similar moment where it's like something is stabbing at you and you can't get away. You're just like trapped in that area. It's kind of a different take on the subject, and in case we ever do that movie, I'm not going to say exactly what the scenario is, but that Paris Hilton is like on the grate and the knife is coming up at her, and like there's only so much you can do to get away
No,
because
agree.
the first of all, the stairs are also graded, but he's under the stairs, so you're gonna go down. You know what I mean? Like she just is trapped as the knife keeps coming at her. It is horrifying. I hate it so much, and I always forget that it's there. It surprises me every time.
It's a literal the floor is lava situation. It's like your childhood games have come back and reared their ugly head. It also reminds me of like in westerns when they're like, now dance, and they shoot at your feet and you have to dance around. Same kind of energy, also very stressful, horrible. So feel bad for Paris that she has to go through that. Um, I don't like her choice of getting into a car to hide because there's only so many cars. Like he's gonna check all the cars. Not her best idea. But it's just not fair that she stabs him in the face with a spear and nothing happens
Yeah.
because it's his wax face. Like, is it armored wax? How is that a thing? That doesn't make any sense. It just grazes off of his cheek. She tried so hard.
I think the argument is maybe that the wax is slippery, but the only other answer is that Paris just has bad aim. And I don't like that because she tried to stab him in the face, which feels like it should be effective. You know what I mean?
Yes. She was doing some great final girl shit, but the odds were tipped against her. She was never going to be the final girl ever. The whole thing was about her dying. That's the whole point of the movie. And of all ways for her to die, her literally being like, what is it, like
Getting javelined through the fucking face.
Listen, this is our second movie where the baddie has great throwing aim, a la Sleepy Hollow.
There are a lot of Sleepy Hollow through lines in this movie. The GPS and the javelin death.
Yeah. Also, my immediate thought after her death, when they're like showing it going through the back of her hair, her head, I was like, her hair still looks amazing.
As Paris would want it, as Paris would need it.
Yeah, like her hair just still coiffed, still in that perfect messy bun that we all think is something that happens to human beings naturally, but no, it's only movie magic, or it happens naturally if you are my roommate James, who has just perfect hair and can do the perfect movie messy bun. I'm upset about it. But she looked great, even in death, even with her face split in half.
Paris said, "You can kill me, but you can never not make me hot."
That's hot.
Oh man. Okay. So that's pretty much all the deaths, right?
Well,
besides the climax of the film.
Yes, there is Bo and Vincent at the end in the fight. I wouldn't say either of those is particularly a good fun death in the way that Wade and Paige have fun deaths, but I also completely loved Carly just going absolutely batshit on Bo with a baseball bat. And I loved that when she got Vincent, she had to literally pull a knife out of her brother's leg in order to stab him. That's badass at hell. And there were so many good scenes in that final climax where I was like, this is cinema. Because the wax house is melting around them at this point. Underground, they had the confrontation with Vincent where things started to go up in flames for no real reason that I can understand, but I'm happy it happened.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like,
the house melt?
Yeah, they like,
why the house melt?
She slams something that makes the fire for the boiling pot of wax go crazy, and then they pour the wax into the grates, and for some reason wax doesn't like light on fire like that. Like, that's why candles are safe to burn. So I don't really understand why the house became a fireball, but I don't need to. I love that it happened regardless.
It could happen. Anything can happen.
Yes. So the wax house is like melting around them. Things are falling apart. For some reason, Carly has decided that she will run upstairs. Don't know why. Don't ask any questions. But that's what felt right to her in the moment. And so I trust her implicitly. So she's
Mistake.
upstairs and she's hiding in the bedroom and she is like, oh, I'm gonna barricade this wax door with the wax baby crib with wax babies in it. Because you know you got to do something. And Vincent,
Not just any wax babies.
yes, the conjoined twin wax babies. And Vincent stabs through the door and then he pulls the knife down the door and it perfectly cuts the babies into two no longer conjoined babies. I was like, this is cinema.
Cinema.
And then
Cinema.
yes, and then when Vincent is on the bed after he's gotten got and he falls through and he perfectly falls on top of Bo, and then the wax starts to consume them, putting them back together after they were separated by their deranged surgeon father. I was just like, you know, in another movie, people might think this is over the top, but I think it's a beautiful metaphor.
It's honestly so fucking heavy-handed. It's like
it's
they're
so
punching you
perfect.
in the fucking face with this imagery.
Like in another movie, you would be like, all right, that's too far. That's too much. But in this movie, it's everything that I want.
It's amazing.
You're like, I want
Give me
more.
more.
Also, the symbolism when Bo gets his face all beat the hell up by Carly, and so then he has the same facial type of deformity as his brother Vincent after all of these years, and it's just like, wow, okay, we get it, we understand what you're saying, and you have driven it home like at least 4 different times visually and even verbally, so thank you.
I just
But oh my
love everything about this movie. I love everything about the final scene. It's so the fireballs for no reason are so fucking funny to me, for one, because there truly is no good explanation, but they're just like, do it up, like this is an inferno, and I'm like, yes it is. They have to like dig through the wax to get outside, but they're not even on the ground floor, so they're like above the door. They have to wait for the home to continue melting so that they can crawl onto the cement steps outside that are finally actually something sturdy to grab onto. Like, just everything about this is perfect to me.
Also, they just continue the horrible punishment of poor Wade too, where you like watch his body become engulfed in flames and then just melt into the floor into the inferno. I also like all the little details of all the other wax figures like bursting into flames, like their eyeballs all explode.
Mhm.
Super gross.
Yes.
And also like when they show the titties melting, I'm like, full circle with the titties. Good.
What's I think really cool about the wax figures getting destroyed and melting and showing the various states of decomp, and we see this a couple other times in the movie as bodies are destroyed, but the first time we see it, it's someone in the church and their arm falls off and the blood inside is still like red. It's not like running or anything, so you know the person is dead, but it's still very fresh compared to when the like ticket teller guy in the movie theater gets his head exploded and you see like maggots and like beetles and shit in there. It is just so incredible, and it's such a nice little touch to be like various states of decomposition and dead bodies to show the time they put into this, that they continue to do it. Like, this is a long running scheme.
Also, like, just not on topic, but the fact that they have like tapes running with like sounds that people just make very quietly, like in the church where when there's supposed to be a funeral, there's like little sniffles and stuff, and then like in the movie theater you can hear like sound of like chomping, like if someone's eating popcorn or like coughing a little bit. Like those little details are so upsetting. And also just that whole scene where Carly is pretending to be a wax figure. Oh my god, I almost forgot to mention this. In that scene, right at the very beginning, when Bo is walking down the steps, they show like a whole bunch of these wax figures, and like the wax figures for most of the movie are like extras wearing masks, but I swear to God, I saw one of the extras or the wax guys sitting in a chair like move his eyes and look at Bo. And and it didn't even look like he was wearing like a waxy mask. I was like, did they just forget to put the mask on this one dude? Like, it took me out of it because I don't know if it was intentional or if this extra just fucked it real hard, but it was hilarious.
Oh my god, I haven't.
Spooky.
I did buy this movie, so I will have to go back and watch this moment again.
Oh yes, yes, I might watch it again tonight.
Okay, I think it's just about time maybe to get into our regular segments before we wrap up.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So which one do we want to do first? Could it be Gayer, Matthew Lillard?
Okay, we need to do Could It Be Gayer, because we talked about this a little between us before this started, before we started recording, but I actually don't think we've talked about it at all since we started the episode, which is that Nick and Dalton are in love.
They are 100% in love.
They're 100%
Like
yes.
in
1000%
love.
in love. And it's also really cute because they're in love with each other and they're also both in love with Carly. And I thought that was cute.
Yeah.
I was like, they share so much. That's so nice. But like, yeah, the whole reason that Nick is on this trip, I think, is because Dalton invites him because they're like
Uh-huh.
they're bros, and then you end up finding out that like, okay, so the reason that Nick just got out of jail is because he supposedly stole a car, and the reason that he's mad at Carly, his twin sister / lover, I'm so sorry, is because when the police came to the house, she wasn't like telling them like, oh, it couldn't have been my brother. She just said like, I don't know where the car came from, and that wasn't enough of defense for him. But it turns out, apparently, Dalton, this little dopey man who works at a septic tank company, also steals cars in his free time, and he's the one who actually stole the car, and Nick just took the fall for him because they're lovers.
Yeah, here's the thing.
It's clear.
There are several moments in the movie where the movie like frames them as a couple, where it's like, oh, here is Blake and Paige, and then here is Wade and Carly, and then here is Nick and Dalton. Are they also a couple? Yes, they are. But then it explicitly references it at one point where the two actual confirmed canon on-screen couples are kissing. And then Dalton and Nick like look at each other, and I was like in my notes, when will Dalton and Nick kiss? 1 second later on screen, Nick is like, don't even think about it, I ain't kissing you, dude, even though we know he's gonna kiss him later because they're in love.
A nice little smooch.
Yes, they also, there's another movement. I mean, this is probably like 2005 era homophobia or whatever, but there's another moment later on where they're peeing side by side, unnecessarily close to each other. First of all, if you're out in the wilderness, you know what I mean? It's not like you're in a bathroom, there's only 2 urinals, they're right next to each other, you gotta go. It's like you've got the whole outside world, but you need to stand with your feet essentially touching each other as you both hold your dicks and pee. That's gay. But then Luke comes up to them and is like, hey, are you guys gonna have sex? And he's saying that to be like, okay, me and Paige are, so you need to get the fuck out of here so we can get our bone on. But like,
No,
he's like,
he's
"Hey,
just
we're gonna
sensing
have
the
sex."
vibe.
Yes, they clearly are.
Yeah, Blake is the vibe master, and he can sense the intense love vibes between them.
They're boyfriends.
Also, like, they're boyfriends. Also, the earlier quote you were talking about when everyone's making out except for Nick and Dalton, like, after Nick says he's not going to kiss him, Dalton's like, oh, come on, you know you want to. And then, like, in perfect, like, I'm not gay, haha form, Dalton's like, haha, just kidding, psych, I wouldn't kiss your ass for shit, man. Uh-huh, okay.
All right. Especially after they dress him up as Elton John and they're like, Elton John but gay or blah, blah, blah. Like, the movie is telling us, they weren't ready to say it at the time because it was 2005, but the movie tells us these two are boyfriends.
And also, Dalton literally says a double negative in that moment. He says, just kidding, psych. So he's saying, just
Psych
kidding,
about the
I won't
just
kiss
kidding,
you.
I
Then he's
wouldn't
like,
kiss
psych,
you.
I'm saying psych about the just kidding, I will kiss you.
Uh-huh.
Plain as day.
It's in the script, baby. That's canon. So, I mean, I guess arguably can't get much gayer than that.
I know. And also, one last part, when they go down into the scary catacombs and Nick sees Dalton in the waxification thing with all the needles, and he's like, oh man, like, I'll get you out of there. He's like devastated. And he goes to get him out, and his head breaks off because he's been decapitated.
He looks so soft in that moment, and I literally, like, the way he reacts, even just seeing Dalton's hat down there, he realizes what's happening. But in my notes I wrote, Nick is so moved by his dead friend, he wants to save him. Even though he's dead, he is so soft, but then the whole head is separated. OMFG, Nick is gonna hurl, but guess what? Carly grounds him because they are in love. Like, just a lot going on in this
There's
scene.
a lot.
You know what I mean? She's like, I
Love
know
is
that your boyfriend
complicated.
just died, and I'm here for you because I know what your boyfriend means to you.
Because it's similar to how I feel about you.
Because it's
So
exactly
there you
how I
go.
feel about you.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, this should be filed under the LGBTQ category on streaming sites.
Put this
Right next to the
Yeah,
Bubble
this
Dude
movie
on Netflix.
already gay.
Yep, already gay. So that's wonderful. Great to have representation. We love to see it. A bi icon.
Two
Chad
bi
Michael Murray.
icons. Dalton
Yes.
and Nick.
Bicon.
Icons.
We
Two
need more bi
icons.
men on screen, and this movie said, here, have two.
We need more bi men, just
Just
period.
Just
Please.
period.
Yeah.
Let me know. I love you so much.
DM us spooky_Tuesday and let us know. But okay, so next one of our favorite segments is Matthew Lillard. Where could he be in this film? And I have a few ideas, but what did you guys think?
Bo. He has to be Bo.
I could definitely see him as Bo, and I had that as one of my things.
Like, he is sexy and deranged enough to be Bo.
But I don't think that if we're doing the timeline thing, it's 2005, so he was still a young, sprightly boy. And so,
This
I
is like
don't
10 years after Scream came out.
okay, he's still a young, sprightly boy. I
He
think
would
that
be
he would
late 20s. That's about the right age.
He'd be like mid-30s now.
Oh, yeah?
well,
How old?
someday we'll look up how old he is. But either way, I also thought that he would be really, really great as Lester. Because I feel like it would have been super distracting for him to be Bo. But I feel like as Lester, he would have been just really good at being unhinged, really into dead animal taxidermy, eating it, all that stuff. I totally could see that. That really works for him.
I loved the movie as it is, and I loved the casting. I thought Brian Van Holt did an excellent job as both Bo and Vincent. I thought whoever played, here he is, Damon Harriman. He's not listed as Lester on IMDb. He's just Roadkill Driver, which is appropriate. But I thought he did a great job as well. I just think a great Matthew Lillard touch could have been as one of the wax figures. You know what I mean? I think okay, here's my pitch. I think this maybe would have been hard to do from a copyright perspective. Who knows? I'm not a lawyer. But I think if you had made some of the wax like figures in the House of Wax subtle references to past iconic scary movies, that would have been like just the most delightful thing in the world. And if one of them was Stu from Scream, that would have, I think, been the only thing that could have made this movie better, because it's hard to top what it already is. That, I think, might have been the addition.
I also would like to say that I don't want to make any changes to the cast. Like we just said, it's perfect. But I would have loved to see if we could do the time change thing. The Stu era, Stu age Matthew Lillard playing Dalton, so him and Chad Michael Murray could be in love. Would have been something that I really would have been very interested in. Though he is a little too hot to play Dalton. Not that Dalton isn't hot. It's just he's supposed to be a little geekier, and I think that Matthew Lillard has unbridled sex appeal, so it might have been too much for the role. But that's just something to throw in the ring. So, okay.
I'm down with that.
It would have been great. Let's go in a time machine and bring Matthew with us. It would be really fun. But all right, I think it's time for the dumb bitch. And I've been thinking about it a lot, but there's a lot of contenders, but I feel like there's a strong number one for me. But what do you think, Chelsea? You look very pensive right now.
I don't know. I feel like I had one that I thought for sure you're the dumb bitch earlier. I'm not so sure now, because I do kind of waffle. I would like to give the anti-dumb bitch award to Carly just really quick, because not only does she do
Mhm.
some great final girl shit, not only is she amazing, she like gets the tip of her finger cut off and almost immediately is like, I know what I can use this warm blood for, to melt the super glue gluing my mouth shut so that I can scream for help. Like, that's smart. But the moment that I really want to give her the anti-dumb bitch award for is when she hides in the church. She finds a hiding spot. You don't know where it is until she gets discovered, but it is the smartest fucking hiding spot that ever existed, which is she hides
Agree.
under the robes of the priest wax figure who's leading the ceremony. Like, to think of that is
Genius.
so genius, so smart. I love her. She's perfect. I would propose in 1 second. That moment alone for me is like one of the best details in the whole movie. And I just think if she ever made a mistake at any point, that makes up for it.
I agree. That makes up for the fact that she went upstairs in the wax house.
Yes. And it also makes up for the fact that she chose to date Wade, who, no offense, I don't see what's appealing about him other than he's cute.
He's 6'4".
That's part of being
He was
cute.
a whole
That's
foot
one
taller than her.
Yeah, okay.
He was a whole foot taller than her, so she had to like stand on blocks that they tied to her feet in the scenes where you couldn't see her feet, so they could be near each other's height, which is something that I enjoy. Also, one thing that I wanted to mention that we didn't mention about the final scene is that the wax in the bed when they're having the bed fight at the end, that's while it's melting, it was peanut butter.
Which is horrifying to me. And I hate that so much.
I was like, but I guess none of them had a nut allergy. That's good to know. Good for them.
Thank God.
Okay, so dumb bitch. Who are we feeling? Because like, it makes me sad, but I feel like there's one person who fucks up more than everyone else, and so they are the dumbest of them all.
It's Wade, right?
It's Wade. I had a whole list. I thought maybe Blake, because he was like, let's do a shortcut, and he cares about vibes more than anything else. I thought Carly maybe for a second at the beginning, because she said, let's camp on the side of the road like a psychopath. And then I thought maybe Nick, because one, at the beginning, he fucking kicks a cup out of a unhoused individual's hands and says, get a job. And that's the meanest thing I've ever heard in my life, you douchebag.
Yeah.
And also, because he's such a baddie that he's like, oh, there's this car that is shining its brights at us while we party. I'm going to throw my beer and break its headlight. That's a genius move, you dumb idiot. That's terrible. But no, it's got to be Wade, because he just has no boundaries. He doesn't think about anything except for, like, you know, making really stupid jokes with a lighter, swooshing around a fetal pig. Like, he's so stupid.
Yeah. Okay, here's the thing about Wade. Not only does he go through... Okay, he says there are 2 times he's made a dick of himself. The first time when he, like, yelled at Lester in the car for being spooky, and then the town really was right around the corner, even though we found out later he was right about that. And the second time when he walks into the funeral and then is like, uh-oh, I've made a dick of myself again, even though we found out later he was fine to do that too. But there's a moment when Beau is like flirting with Carly, and as we know, everybody is in love with Carly, including me. Where Wade like loses his shit a little bit for no good reason, where he's like, looks like your fan club's gotten a little bigger, but he's like mad about it because he brings up Dalton as well, who has a crush on Carly. Little does he know that Nick is also part of the equation. That one goes over. But like, to get mad at her because this random guy is like flirting with her, like, what is she supposed to do?
Yeah, that was
Listen, if you can't handle dating a baddie, if you are insecure, like, don't do it. Like, you gotta be secure. Like, don't date a baddie if you are an insecure little bitch.
It's just like,
don't do it.
You know how you find me to be super sexy, Wade? Other people feel the same way. Is that shocking? No. Let a girl live.
And is it my fault? No.
It's not my fault. I'm hot. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Do you remember that song?
Yeah, don't hate the player, hate the game, baby.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
wow.
It's clear it's got to be him. He's the dumb bitch. I think it's official. I don't think we really need to discuss beyond that.
No, it's Wade. Sorry, Wade. Bye. And now brings us to our knives out of fives. And I'm excited to see how high we're going to rate this. Do we go off the scale? Like, what's going to happen?
I will say I've given a 6 before. You know what I mean? I gave a 6
I
to straight
know.
3, so I'm willing to be generous at all times. Monica, you've never even quite given a 5, so I'm very
I
curious to
haven't.
see where this falls for you.
I feel like you're going to be disappointed. Because I'm not going to give it higher than The Witch. Because, like, we were texting earlier this week, and Chelsea's like, wow, The Witch was number 1 for all of 5 seconds. And I'm like, okay. They're so different. They're just in different places in my mind. And I feel like this movie is just unbridled joy, and it's beautiful. It brings me back to the early aughts, and it's wonderful. But it's not perfect, but I love it. And we know that I don't give 5s yet. I
Yeah.
don't do that. So I'm not going to give a 5 yet because I don't, even though I had the best time of my life. I had the time of my life, and I've never felt this way before. But I'm still not going to give it a 5. So I gave The Witch a 4.99999 repeating into infinity, and I'm giving this one a 4.88888888 into infinity. And that's a nice thing coming from me, okay? I'm sorry, I'm stingy. It's just how it is.
No, totally.
What do you
I know
guys
you
think?
don't give 5s. I know you're saving a 5 if ever there will be one for the most wonderful movie in the world that you'd like to marry for the rest of your life. You know, like I get it. There's still a lot of room for a really good score below 4.999 repeating, 4.888 repeating. I think it's pretty respectable.
Thank you. Thank you for respecting my choices. And my feelings.
What do you
What did you guys think?
I loved this movie. Now that I own it, I'm definitely gonna have to watch it a lot more. I'll give this a very solid 4 because
Oh.
there is some questionable football things in this film
not
that
for
just still does not sit right with me.
The football part of this movie knocked the whole point off it for Sydney. That is outrageous.
The whole point. But this movie is so rewatchable. It is a
Truly.
fun time. I think it got unnecessary hate. It's the soundtrack so good. The cast
Good.
so good. The set so good. I will recommend this movie over and over again. Everybody should watch it.
Yeah, I think the thing is that this movie is just so delicious to me. And I didn't say this before you guys gave your knives, but I don't want to completely forget again, like we did when we were talking about Sleepy Hollow. But the ratings across the board on IMDb, this movie got a 5.3 out of 10. And from Rotten Tomatoes, and this makes me really mad actually. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 26% rotten from critics and 42% rotten from the audience. Again, that's a huge disparity. The audience liked it and recognized that it was fun a lot more than critics, but that's pretty bad for
Blasphemy.
both, which is just like you're wrong and
Wow.
Wrong. It's so sad that these people have no taste.
no,
It's just sad.
we are the only people in the world. I hope not the only people in the world. Actually, everybody should love and enjoy and appreciate this movie. But like, we're right and they're wrong. This movie is a goddamn masterpiece.
Right there with you.
And in honor of that, in
Yes.
honor of how much fun I have every single time, in honor of the fact that I watched this in the 8th grade and it haunted me for a full week afterwards, in honor of the fact that it still haunts me now and like I can't watch those snippy moments on screen. I truly cannot sit through it. Like my body is incapable of doing it. I just think it is one of those movies that is so fun and so scary and so funny and so 2005, which is such a fun time in our history, that I want to give it a full 5 knives out of 5.
Ooh.
For me, full 5s.
Standing ovation. Standing ovation. I would have stood up in the theater and clapped at the end of
Sure.
this film.
It's just like I don't need to understand why the house is going up in flames for some reason and why there are giant fireballs. I'm just glad they're there because it is so funny and it is so fun, and the visual of the house melting around them, you don't need to make it make sense. I'm just glad to see it.
100% in agreement. I've had a wonderful time discussing this movie. I love it. I'm going to ride this high into this evening and watch it again.
Yeah, make Adam watch it. We want to know
Oh,
what he
yeah.
thinks of it.
I still got another 24 hours on my rental. I should have bought it. It was a big mistake.
I rented
But,
it,
okay,
and then after
well-
it finished, I was like, I need to buy it. I must own this.
That was a great idea. Okay, well, what are we doing next week, Sydney? Because you are the expert on this film. None of us have seen it.
Okay, so this is a movie that I personally think should be a cult classic, and it is the 1966 Don Knotts movie, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken,
Great name.
which it's one of the best names ever, and I will say it is more of a spooky comedy. So we are a spooky show, so it still falls into our ghost films, and it's so good. It was my dad's favorite movie growing up, and so we watched it all of the time, and it deserves all the recognition. Everybody I talk about it, I'm like, do you know this movie? And they're like, what the fuck is this movie? And that is a shame, and everybody should know what it is. Like, y'all had never heard of it before. Like,
Not once in my life.
a shame, a catastrophe. Like, I'm thrilled for y'all to watch it.
I'm excited for us to put some shine on this beautiful film. I'm sure it's going to be I'm excited to have something that doesn't have as many snipped off fingers, muscles, stabby foots. It's going to be nice to have a little bit of a breather from that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Right, it'll be post inauguration. Like, I think we just need a nice palate cleansing movie.
Agreed. All right, I think that wraps it up for this episode. Thank you for joining us as we discuss pure gold in film form. If you liked what you heard, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you want to know more about our beautiful podcast, seen some homegrown memes from Chelsea herself, follow us at spooky_Tuesday on both Instagram and Twitter. And search Spooky Tuesday Pod on Facebook if you are still on that platform.
Bye, spookies.
Bye.
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Height, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamra Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Captain Tamra, and our podcast art is by Mary Murphy, who you can find on Instagram at the_moon_OMG.
So much for his nice little shortcut.